Welcome to another live edition of House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me, as always, is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, how are you doing? Second game of the preseason. Are you just glad it's over with here?
Yeah, that means one more week of preseason action. But the Rams are holding it down. The preseason, they are 2-0. They gave you some drama at the end, and I'll say this: Stetson Bennett improved, but you want to improve after a four interception game. He had that nice touchdown pass, but then he had interception in the end zone, interception in the end zone, and then a fumble. Hey, but the Rams still won the game, so I guess what's the saying when you bottom out, nowhere to go but up. So good performance by Stetson Bennett, and we'll get to the rest of the guys here in a bit.
Yeah, Aubrey Pleasant want to know as a head
Yeah,
coach, and then you go from last season, last preseason you were 0-3, and now you're 2-0. So things are looking up for a Rams team that half the team seems to be injured, but the second team is holding it down while the guys get they get healthy. But Gilbert, let's start off with there's not a lot to talk about in terms of what we saw tonight, and I guess your biggest takeaway. I'm guessing you're going to start off with Stetson Bennett.
yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of these players, probably won't play during the regular season, and that's kind of more of Sean McVay being cautious when it comes to the preseason. And rookies who are expected to play a lot won't even play in the preseason. Starters, veterans, guys like that. So you see a lot of Stetson Bennett here. And I guess he is a big part of we're gonna talk about here because the Rams do have this decision because JJ, I'm thinking JJ McCarthy, Jimmy Garoppolo, the other Jimmy Garoppolo is gonna be the backup, but he's gonna be suspended for 2 games. So you need Stetson Bennett to step up for 2 games in case something happens to Matthew Stafford. And it was up and down, but you're kind of telling yourself, well, he did improve. He did have that nice touchdown to, or maybe that's what I'm thinking. JJ Lapp got that
Yep.
nice touchdown, 50-yard reception there. And honestly, when you have guys who are injured or guys who are resting, you see JJ Lapp appear or Xavier Smith or like McCullough who got an reception. It's like, man, like this really testing my Rams roster. You're going deep into the roster here, so a lot of guys stepped up. That's good. And like you mentioned to start off the show, Victor, Aubrey Pleasant getting the coaching, start today. That's cool that Sean McVay does that. And you can tell when on the broadcast when he got interviewed, and he was up there in the booth, by the way,
Hmm.
how much it meant for him to have Aubrey Pleasant get that coaching, start to say the least. But Stetson, guy stepping up, Aubrey Pleasant being a nice story. Overall, it was a good day for the LA Rams.
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about Aubrey Pleasant. We've asked some of the reporters that we've had on Gilbert about Aubrey Pleasant and how big of an influence he is, and how what a key it was for them to retain him. I mean, they gave him a new coaching title before the season, and so that's how highly he is thought of. He's went to the Lions. They fired him, and then he came back, and the players speak well of him, and rightfully so. He's shown a lot of why he is a coach that is well liked in that locker room. So we talked to Quinn Lake at at a Super Bowl Radio Row, and he told us why he is well liked in that locker room. So it's good to see guys like that. I'll ask you about this now in terms of what this means going forward, not for Aubrey Pleasant, but in terms of preseason games, because the way I took this is I like the fact that he's giving guys opportunities. Last year was Raheem Morris. This year is Aubrey Pleasant. But at the same time, this makes it more obvious for the NFL to be like, look, if coaches are not going to take the preseason seriously, we might as well go to an 18-game season. And so that's where I took it. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of guys do need the preseason, and especially when you have maybe a young roster and you have a bunch of rookies, but you always want to think about keeping players safe and avoid injuries, and even like today, I don't know if he got in trouble. I shouldn't say that, but Raheem Morris got some heat for not playing Michael Penix Jr., who is a rookie who's not expected to start this season, but he was working under Sean McVay. We're like, hey, you're not gonna play. We think highly of you, so. And we saw the injuries that occurred to the quarterbacks. We saw JJ McCarthy, have the knee injury and out for the season. So that's why guys like Raheem Morris, you know what? We've seen enough here. We won't play you. But because you don't want to keep cutting down the preseason. Maybe I guess you could get it to 2 games, especially with coaches like Sean McVay and Raheem Morris are just seeing like, hey, or just saying we saw one series, that's good enough, or hey, 1 game, that's good enough. And it does feel like it usually is like 1 game, because a lot of guys played last week but didn't play this week, or maybe it's the other way around where they didn't play week 1 but they're playing week 2. I was just watching the Giants game for Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones didn't play a week ago, but he did play today. Or you see a teams like the Chiefs where like Patrick Mahomes is always going to play in the preseason. Or I think I heard Bill Belichick mention not too long ago that Tom Brady likes to play or liked at the time to play in the preseason. So it's always different. So it's hard to kind of gauge, what's the future is, what it is for the preseason. But you, like you mentioned, Victor, it's going to get affected in some way because eventually we are going to go to an 18-game season. But overall, I complain about it. A lot of people complain because it's not the real type of football. But for guys like Stetson Bennett who needs to work, it does maybe, really help him out. I know for him, it was really ugly last week and there were some ugly moments, but when you're playing the full entire game, it does help sometimes.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into the question here, or the comment here from James Wheelock says Rams have a lot of young players, some tough cuts, and I mean that's pretty much my why I asked you about that was because I think guys like Xavier Smith, Jake Hummel, Bolemure, like Bolimer, Logan Bruss, Omar Spates, and
So
Jalen McCullough. Guys like that, you get seen and you can earn. The guys who are on the bubble. And you can kind of see, okay, these guys might do something, and we might need to keep those guys on the 53-man roster, which kind of leads into the engagement question of the day for Ram fans is which players are on the 53-man roster bubble here for you guys. We want to know. I mean, we saw Xavier Smith, as you talked about earlier, Gilbert. What does that do for Tutu Atwell? Why is he sitting? Why, when you have guys like Xavier Smith, is he going to make it tougher for someone like Tutu Atwell where you can move on from him, Gilbert? Other guys like Jay Hummel, we talked about, Ernest Jones, and we're like, well, what's behind him? We started to see Jake Hummel. He's a special teams guy, but he's performed really well in these games. And same thing with the center. We were asking, well, who's behind Steve Avila? If one of those three guys in the interior has to miss time, who can come in? We've seen Logan Bruss. I mean, a guy who got cut
yeah,
last year, Gilbert. He's made such a big impression now that he's gonna. I think he makes this team, but without the preseason, we don't get to see these kind of guys. So I just wanted to make sure
yeah.
we spotlighted some names here.
Well, the good thing is that a guy like Jordan Whittington stepping up for 2 games down the preseason, you're starting feeling you feel sure about him. Or okay, you got your big three in Robinson and Puka and Cooper, but if injury occurs, you can have him to be the fourth guy. Now it's kind of like, okay, how much depth do you really need? And also, are you ready to give up on a guy like Tutu Atwell? Maybe you want to give a chance to some of these younger guys like Xavier Smith, or I think he has a good name for LA, JJ Lap, because it's spelled LAAP.
Yeah.
LA. Maybe it's meant to be in LA, but yeah, these are moments where you step up and you get them in the second preseason game or in the third preseason game. And when you make lasting impressions like that, where you get a touchdown or you just make pivotal plays, you're gonna find the spot. So, with Tutu Atwell, he's had a lot of opportunities. So it's tough because he's viewed as a veteran. So you think maybe he doesn't need to show anything to McVay, but then you think about his history where he's had a lot of up and downs where maybe he does need to show something to McVay. So if he's not playing, sometimes it means that's good for a veteran, but it's also it could be like, hey, you know what? We're starting to phase you out. We don't really feel you right now. Let's see what these other young guys could do. So that's the thing, is a mystery there. But I think Jordan Whittington stepping up could spell trouble for Tutu Atwell. And like you mentioned, Victor, like Logan Bruss found himself on waivers, came back and did it the hard way. And now he's making a name for himself, or at least he's providing help where help is needed. So that's the other part of it too. The equation is like, if you feel confident with your big four at wide receiver, now you're thinking like, hey, we could use an extra body on offensive line. We could use an extra body on linebacker. And that's where also more trouble could come to Atwell. I think he's had his opportunities. I think maybe it's time to move on, or at least cut him, and then maybe run, see if anybody else wants them. If not, bring them back, and you kind of do that again with the practice squad kind of thing there. But you heard the broadcast saying, hey, you want these guys to step up on defense because you have some question marks at linebacker. You do need some depth at secondary. So games like this where a lot of starters are not playing, you see guys stepping up. That's good. And going off of James Wheelock's comment, having young talent is a good thing because you need depth in the NFL.
Yeah, you really do, especially when, as we talked about, you're trying to replenish a Super Bowl team, especially after, you had a bad season 2 years ago. You come back and you make the playoffs last season. And so you have the retirement of Aaron Donald. You have guys who are a little bit older. So you're having to hit, which they've done a great job of hitting on guys in the middle rounds. And now you continue to see it with guys like we talked about, Xavier Smith, and Bo Limmer and Logan Bruss coming back, and even like a Jalen McCullough, like with that nice interception in the first half. But it kind of, one of the things I was kind of wanting to talk to you about for this episode with the Rams roster and this 53-man roster, which guys are on the bubble. It's going to be kind of hard to figure out. Just and going to what Steve On is saying here, he says kind of feel like we're going to lose Xavier Smith if he doesn't make the 53-man roster. Tutu is currently in stretch as a number 4, I think. So I mean, there's
Or
a
I think
lot
it'll
there.
be
You
number
also have,
five. I think it'll be number five. I guess if you're thinking about Jordan Whittington.
yeah. And then you also have Tyler Johnson. I mean, it
Yeah,
also, what do you need? Do you need someone who can do special teams? Like, and it makes the decisions harder too when you have a guy who can return punts and kickoffs like, Xavier Smith. So that'll be a big question mark when we have our 53-man roster
yeah,
episode, is how many receivers do you keep? Where how many secondary guys, because we don't know when Williams is going to be back. We've been told that he'll be ready to go for week 1, but you have guys who've been hurt in the past. Do you want to make sure that you have guys behind them? It's going to be a tough, cut, for the cutting down the 53-man roster for the Rams.
yeah. I would not be shocked if they go with five wide receivers. I think four would be a little. I guess you're really hoping a lot of things go right for your big three there in the Marcus Robinson, Puka, and Cooper. You've already seen an injury to Puka Nakua, so I think five sounds like the magic number, and I think it sounds like Steve is high on Tutu still. So that could be something where you're thinking like, well, you don't want to lose Xavier Smith, and maybe the odds are that he probably will go through waivers and you're going to pick him up. But hey, maybe he has another week 3 preseason performance where he balls out, and you don't want to risk that. So I think it's going to be five right there because of the injuries on the offensive line. Because maybe you need a little more depth in the secondary. You also have uncertainty at linebackers. So I see defense getting a lot of extra rosters and also offensive line where you probably are going to have to pick between Tutu, Tyler Johnson, Xavier Smith, or even JJ Lapp, who got a touchdown.
Yeah, and one, I remember having this conversation 2 years ago when Lance McCutcheon came into play, and we were like, "Well, are they gonna do 7 receivers?" They ended up keeping 7 receivers. There's always that surprise cut. There's always that player that ends up making the roster, and then you have teams who cut other guys who the Rams might be looking at, and they bring those guys in as
Yeah.
well. That's another way of going. So it'll be interesting to see where they stand. I know in terms of the offensive line, Gilbert McClendon was a guy that's been talked about the last 2 weeks since the injuries happened to Havenstein, and so there's guys that are stepping up, and it's good to see, because that's been my biggest question mark with this team, was injuries and that offensive line, especially with the injuries. I wasn't as concerned, because we liked where they were going in terms of how they were building the trenches. My biggest concern was now with the injuries, would they have guys step up? And so far we've seen that with some of the guys.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of got me worried with all the injuries with the Rams, and I'll be full transparent here that it's time for me to make my final predictions for the season. SI is asking me to do it within a week, and I'm like, The Rams have a lot of injuries. I don't like this dilemma with Matthew Stafford possibly on his final year, so you kind of worry about that. And then you see them kind of have all these like diamonds in the rough or gems just stepping up, and like it just reminds you how well Les Snead and McVay draft and develop players and get them ready. Where last year nobody expected them to do anything, and then they ball out. But it's just you see all the injuries in the offensive line, and you see the contract dilemma with Stafford, or Stafford having the hamstring injury against the Cowboys. It does kind of worry you a little bit. You see him picking Quills again in some injuries, but then games like today where like okay they tend to they just have a knack of finding gems. And we hadn't even talked about Joshua Carty, the rookie
Yeah.
kicker that they drafted, and he's doing well. He's drilling field goals out there. And I think it was Andrew Siciliano on the broadcast that kept reminding people that the Rams at one point had Cameron Dicker, who I think has developed into one of the best kickers in the
Yeah.
NFL. Dicker the kicker. And but it doesn't feel that bad, or there's no sting there because you're seeing Joshua Carty making the field goal. So another reminder that the Rams tend to find talent, develop them, and get them ready to go. Where guys like Aubrey Pleasant could look good on a preseason game. So it's a lot of kind of debating the injuries, and then also keeping in mind the history of what LSD does.
Yeah, and then the other thing, Gilbert, we haven't even talked about, but special teams. This was in terms of, historical last season was one of the worst special teams crew, not just with the Rams, but in NFL history. They were number 8, I think, in all time as the worst, special teams. So far, I like what I'm seeing with their special teams, whether it's return, whether it's coverage. Everything looks good so far. We'll see once we get to the regular season. But that's another thing too, is the guys you decide to keep and the guys you decide to cut are going to go a long way with how well they play on special teams. We know Jake Hummel's going to make this team not only because he's playing really good a linebacker right now, but he's a special teams guy. Other guys are gonna have to step up, and I think you have one more game here, Gilbert, for some of these guys who are on the bubble to make their presence felt, because you're gonna make this team, and that's where Tutu needs to kind of step up. I think if you're able to do more than one thing, that helps your cause here.
Yeah, so these roster bubble guys, the younger players, they have about 10 days to impress the coaching staff. You got one more preseason game. You actually have one more joint practice, right, Victor, against the Texans. So
The
there are
Texans next week, yes.
there are opportunities to shine, and I think roster cut down day is August 27th. So, guys like I see Steve mentioning Speeds there.
Yeah,
You
here we
obviously,
go. Here, you can read the comment.
yeah, and I want to say it's Speeds, but maybe I could be wrong, or Spites. But do you think Speeds makes a 53-man roster? I like the talent, but can't imagine him leapfrogging Jacob Hummel and that linebacker whose name escapes me, but he's the other white linebacker. Is it Roseboom, or yeah, is it
Yeah, Rose. Yeah, Roseboom.
yeah, so obviously Roseboom and Hummel have been there, but maybe sometimes you like the young guy and you want to create change there and you want to start developing guys because uh, who is it? I think the Colts are the ones that kind of just have a knack of developing linebackers and just they find them out of nowhere. And maybe the Rams want
Mhm.
to find a gem like that, so that creates opportunities there. So I got to sit down and do it and see how many jobs are for sure taken on the Rams roster. I'm sure it's already a bulk. Is a good amount. Usually it's like maybe 5, maybe 6 up for grabs. You never know. I was actually in Denver Friday, and Sean Payton was like, yeah, like about 70% of the roster is already ready to go, and it makes me wonder, like, oh, that's actually a good amount. You got 30% there, so it could be 6 or 7 jobs available to impress the coaching staff. So we'll see what they do in 10 days there. But a game like today, I know it wasn't pretty offensively, but the defense really stepped up. They made a lot of key plays. Obviously, you're not playing Justin Herbert. You're playing an up and down Easton Stick and an up and down Luis Perez. But to make plays like that and hold them down again back to back preseason games, that's a good sign for the defense at least.
Yeah, and I mean, they look like they have a structure down, Gilbert, and I think that's part of the impressive thing. We'll see when the regular season comes around, especially having to take on a team like the Lions. That'll be something, that'll really test you there. But you like what you're seeing from a lot of these young guys. This is where they need to shine, and that was part of the reason I wanted to ask you about what these preseason game mean. A lot of people, especially when you have Sean McVay just kind of giving the reins over to Pleasant. you kind of forget how important it is for some of these guys, especially who are trying to make the 53 man roster, and if they're on the bubble. But let me go through some of these comments here real quick. James Wheelock says, I watch Aubrey Pleasant in training camp. Irvine in McVay's first year seemed to pay attention to detail and technique. And I'll say this, Gilbert. When we went to training camp at LMU, one of the guys that stood out was him. Like the way he worked with the DBs, he was, and he had their attention. He was working with Quinn Lake. He was working with some of the other guys. It was really impressive to see him, take court there and just, have that presence about him and the way he teaches the DBs.
Yeah, and it says a lot that Sean McVay, gave him the opportunity to be the head coach of the night, and I don't think he's ever done that. He's had like maybe I could be wrong, but I think he mostly has you know assistant coaches call plays that don't normally get
Yep.
to call plays. Like, hey, Sean McVay calls a bunch of offensive plays within the season, so you get an opportunity OC to call plays, or hey, defensive coordinator or defensive assistant call plays. But today it was the full show for Aubrey Pleasant, so I can't recall when during these opportunities where Sean McVay went up to the booth and was just helping out in the booth, and also he was available to be next door to the Rams broadcast, had a sit down interview during the preseason game. So he's finding new ways to help and create opportunities for assistant coaches. So I think Sean McVay is one of the best at doing that. And I think I think it was last year. SI asked me to have this story where we all picked terrible ideas or don't sound so terrible when you think about it. And mine was not allowing rookie head coaches to call plays, that the assistant coaches call plays, because when you're a rookie head coach, there's too much going on. But also
Yeah.
when you're hogging the play calling duties, you don't allow other coaches under you to flourish and develop, because everybody wants to see you having on their resume play calling
Yeah.
experience. So that was kind of my bad take, to have like a ban for head coaches not to call plays. Hey, but to Sean McVay's credit, he is hogging it during the season, but he's allowing coaches like Aubrey Pleasant to shine in the preseason. And then that way, when you go into his interviews, you could show, hey, look what I did against the Chargers here on August 17, 2024, where guys like Speed stepped up, or I think Watkins got a sack, or is it Hampton got a sack? Guys you never heard of, but they played well under me, and I was able to run Chris Shula's scheme to perfection.
Yeah, and Chris Shula is another guy that he looks like they're not missing a beat without Raheem Morris. And to your point, I mean, we saw how much Les Need and Sean McVay pushed for Raheem Morris, and that's part of the reason that he got the job with Atlanta, was because of how much they push guys to get jobs outside. They don't. Yes, it sucks to lose guys, but at the same time, they really enjoy having people go out there and get jobs. And I don't think they care. It's a nice reward that they get third round picks out of it, but at the same time, for them, it's about building coaches and building that coaching tree for McVay, and he's done a really good job with it. If you look around, it's one of the most successful trees out there right now.
Honestly, maybe a part of why Sean McVay has been so successful, especially at a young age in the NFL, is because the trust that he has in coaches, and also the way he scouts coaches too, where he has these interviews where he's not afraid to go outside the network and the contact book, and okay, let me get guys from the Patriots I haven't really worked with, or whatever scheme it is, and allowing these guys to get them opportunities, because sometimes when you're what's the word? Like I said, control freak, where you want to do more, where you're like, hey, I'm the guy who does it. That gets you in trouble. So, for the most part, it kind of seems like McVay is doing everything offensively, but like I'm sure, these guys are getting jobs partly because they're under McVay's guidance in the tree, but some of these guys are succeeding because they were allowed big opportunities under McVay. They were ready to go, and that's a credit to him. So yeah, it's the preseason. I know that we're kind of looking for topics to talk about, but I think this is a big thing that he's doing with Aubrey Pleasant shining. We saw it with Shula. We saw it with Eric Henderson before he went to USC. We saw it with Raheem Morris. I want to say the former OC that is escaping my mind right now, but he went to Kentucky. Liam
Yes,
Cohen. He
Liam
also got an
Cohen with
opportunity, and so he's
with
been
the
doing this for
Bucks. Yes.
yeah. He's been doing a lot of this. Actually, yes, with the Bucks now with Baker Mayfield. You're correct, Victor. So he's been doing this for many years.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, and the list goes on and on. From Kevin O'Connell with with the Vikings. You have Zach Taylor with the Bengals. I mean, his like I said, you go down the list of his coaching tree, and it's really impressive. And it tells you that, and it helps that he's been doing this for a while. That there's no ego with him, and I think one of the best front offices out there is when they can collab. They can bring guys in, and they can have, one of the things that I've been really impressed with McVay is like he noticed that people they had caught up to the 11 personnel, right? So he's like, look, I gotta change it because look, the next younger coaches, the younger guys, there's gonna be younger McVays out there. There's gonna be younger, McDaniels and Shanahan's who are gonna out scheme him. And he's swallowed his pride, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna change the way we run the ball, and we're gonna change our offense to kind of be able to beat the new schemes that are coming around because the NFL, one of the things I've learned, Gilbert, is that if you're a person who doesn't, evolve, you're gonna get left behind. We've seen it with Belichick offensively. Defensively, that was one of the things that I was always really impressed with Belichick is that he was in the league for 40 years, 50 years, and then you still couldn't out scheme him. He just didn't, he just wasn't someone that was really good at being able to hire an offensive guy. And that's where things kind of fell apart for him. But defensively, he always evolved. And that's what you need to do as a coach.
Yeah, and that's why the Rams were able to turn it around last year after going 5 and 12 to the 10 victories they got last year. So, he's one of the best coaches, Sean McVay, that is, and he has a way about it, and it's been working so far. And honestly, Victor, I think the NFC is gonna be tough to predict because I feel like with the AFC it's a little easier, especially because you could pencil in the Chiefs there pretty much every year. But with the Rams, they gotta maybe face the Cardinals or maybe even the Seahawks or maybe obviously the 49ers are gonna be pretty good. But then you also got the NFC East. You got the Cowboys, you got the Eagles, and you just never know. But surprising, obviously the Detroit Lions we're gonna see off the bat week 1. But that's why when you're in these tough conferences or tough divisions, you got to evolve right away. And I'll highlight BSC's comment. Yeah, I thought maybe I think Johnson didn't have possession of the ball. Cornelius Johnson, he's a rookie receiver for the Chargers. He didn't have possession, and
Yeah.
by the time he caught the ball, the one leg he had down before wasn't when he was still bobbling. So I think that's why they didn't go down. But yeah, you're right. BSC, they should have at least reviewed it, but it didn't look like it was worth it to me.
Yeah, and it's a preseason game too. And then they had the whole, the new review that they're trying out as well. And so, I mean, I understand, but it looked like he was out of bounds. Uh, it's a judgment call. Like, do you really want to? What's going on, DJ Fono? Just here
Hey,
talking. We're talking Rams here. We're talking about players who are on the bubble, who 53-man roster bubble, who might make it, who might not, who impressed today. Stetson Bennett had a up roller coaster kind of a game. He did show improvement. I did like what I saw from Stetson Bennett. I do feel a little bit better, Gilbert, in terms of him being the backup now. I did, just kind of my takeaway in terms of Stetson Bennett is that they kind of cater the offense to what he likes with the rollouts, some of those bootlegs. Yes, he still gets in trouble, but hey, he had a great ball there for that he had it with Lab on that touchdown. So that was good to see, but still some boneheaded plays there that he needs to cut.
yeah, and like you feel better about him being I guess the backup to the backup or the emergency plan, and making the roster as a third quarterback because he is a gamer. He is a fighter. He does when he plays within the structure of the scheme, he does make plays. We saw that touchdown for 47 yards to JJ Lapp. Just when you thought, okay, well, like can we see something, Stetson? He did it. He tends to find the way to kind of like, all right, you're not gonna kill me just yet. I'm gonna keep fighting, going down, swinging. But then he has that fumble where he got stripped, or he has that bad interception in the end zone where I want to say he thought the wide receiver was gonna have a different route, and there was miscommunication. But it's obvious you shouldn't throw that ball there, and he still let it go. So and it also doesn't help that we're judging it based off his 4 interception day. So you're kind of like, well, it is improvement, but it's
Yeah,
not
it's
it's not
not.
backup quality. It's not number
Yes.
two. So For 2 games, he's making a case. Okay, let's roll the dice here. Let's just hope Matthew Stafford stays ready. He did that, but even in the broadcast, Andrew Whitworth was like, he's not quite there to be the backup for those 2 games, but he's in the right direction. That's, I think, the best way to say it.
Yeah, honestly, that's the best you can hope for, Gilbert, is that Stafford, just makes it through those 2 games, and Jimmy Garoppolo, like, you don't have the problem that the Chargers are dealing with, where if if Justin Herbert, misses time, there's pretty much screwed
Yeah.
with what you saw from Stick there. But it's just you're trying to get through those first 2 games and trying to have Jimmy Garoppolo be back by that third game, and so you're just hoping at this point that you don't need Bennett in any of those. So that's
Yeah.
that's part of the problem.
And we'll get Steve. I'll get to your question or your comment in a bit, but to highlight AIG fella, you don't have to say sorry, man. It's I don't trust him either. I don't
Yep.
think Victor does either.
No.
The Rams are really trying to trust him. That's why he's had 2 preseason games where he's played the entire game there. So they want to give him the opportunity. It's a unique opportunity for him because GBG was brought in to be the backup, but he has 2 games he won't play. So hey, Stetson Bennett, he needs to make the most of it. He didn't really last week, but then he got the game-winning touchdown. Then he got the 47-yard touchdown this week. So I don't know. The guy just gets extra opportunities. Even I shouldn't say this, but when he has off the field issues, he keeps getting opportunities to try to make it right. So AIG fella, don't apologize. That's actually a good analysis from you. We're like, yeah, sometimes his throws don't look like they're all there, a little lazy, or maybe it looks lazy because he doesn't know the scheme or doesn't know where the wide receivers is going to be. Maybe obviously you could phrase it a little better, but sometimes he's kind of like a little lost out there. That is the way to
Yeah.
say it. But then there are just times where like, oh, that was actually kind of cool. That was actually pretty impressive. But then you always think about all the turnovers that he had before that.
Yeah, and then Stevan, he asked you a question here. Well, he says Stetson. No, actually, sorry. He says Stetson is going to go to practice squad after the 2 games Garoppolo misses. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the third quarterback on this team. He'll be the emergency quarterback after Jimmy G returns. But going back, sorry to Stevan, he says, might just be me being a hater, but I'm expecting to see Zach Taylor have a dropout now that Brian Callahan is gone. And I'm sure we disagree here with Steve, right?
Not fully because it is a little bit of an unknown. Like he's always had Brian Callahan, who's been great, but he didn't call the plays. That was Zach Taylor, so we should give Zach Taylor more of trust there. But it's something that does affect it. Like you see
Yeah.
guys lose like their favorite quarterback coach or whatever, and like what is it? Dave Canales left Geno Smith, and he was
Hmm.
never the OC, but he missed them, and that was obvious. So yeah, there could be something there, but I think Zach Taylor has shown enough to me where he does get the benefit of that, where it's not all Brian Callahan there. And, but that's the other thing too with the Bengals. And it's a good conversation because it is prediction season. Like I worry about Joe Burrow's wrist injury not being fully healthy. I worry about that connection with Callahan not being there. But I think I'm more with you, Victor, where I've seen enough from Zach Taylor to know he's a great offensive mind. And what he did last year when Burrow went down to have a perfect offense for Jake Browning kind of told me this guy could definitely scheme it up regardless of the quarterback.
Yeah, and for me, I'll keep it sweet and short here. The thing with Zach Taylor is that they weren't running his offense with Joe Burrow, and now during this training camp, they're running his offense because Joe Burrow saw with the backup last year that he was getting under center, and so now you've seen Joe Burrow under center during training camp. So that'll be interesting. That'll be someone that I kind of want to, and I am a little bit with Steve on in terms of I kind of want to see what Zach Taylor can do now without Brian Callahan, and I do like what Brian Callahan has with the Titans. They're one of those surprise teams for me that I'm going with this year. But getting back to the Rams here, we have Al G Fella here says our defense is looking good. These young guys are explosive and exciting. So the defense has been flying around. We talked about Cam Curl, Cam Kitchens. There's a lot of guys, young talent on this team that we really like. We just want to see it. They're gonna get a great test right off the bat against the Lions, And so I can't wait. That I think now that the second preseason game is over now, we can start kind of looking ahead to that matchup with the Lions, right, Gilbert?
Yeah, and real quick, you're probably right on the name. It's Al G Fella. I've been seeing AI so much everywhere that when I see A and a L or AI, I call them AI G Fella. It's kind of cool, actually. Maybe it's a
Yeah,
robot talking to us, but
yeah,
Al is probably the better one. Let me know what it
yeah,
is, Al G Fella or AI G Fella. That's how
yeah.
much we're seeing AI in today's world. But yes, that defense better be on point for Jared Goff. And if we're nitpicking here about the Bengals, like obviously there's always this concern about Jared Goff. Like, can he do it again? Can he do it another season? Well, and he just got paid. Does he have the same motivation? Like, he's not Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, but
It's Al.
Al. Okay, good to
Yeah,
know, Al. See, I just AI is everywhere, man. I'm sorry. Uh, Al, thank you for being on today and commenting.
yeah,
But yeah, Jared Goff is still Jared Goff, who's been Jared Goff with the Lions since he arrived. I think he's been pretty good quarterback. That's what he got paid. I thought was a good investment and a good reward for him. You better be ready for Amon-Ra St. Brown. You better be ready for that two-headed backfield monster, Dave Montgomery, Jameer Gibbs, one of the best offensive line, which might not be totally the best because they lost Jonah Jackson. We'll find out. But the offensive line with the play caller, Ben Johnson, they're going to be clicking. They have chemistry, they have rhythm. So when you have a young defense without Aaron Donald, the first time playing without him in a real game, I could definitely, keep you on your toes.
yeah. And I can't wait to start breaking down that matchup. That'll come in a couple weeks. One other thing that I kind of want to make sure people know is that we'll have our 53-man roster, our prediction on Monday the 26th. August the 26th. So make sure you tune in for that date. We'll go over. We'll give you guys our 53-man roster. I know there's a lot of people already doing it, but we decided we're gonna wait a little bit, just closer to the announcements, just because we kind of want to take our time with it. But we have a comment here from DJ Fono, who's at the SoFi parking lot pimping. He said he came to the game last minute with the kids. I saw some 49er fans scoping out the Rams, but it's only preseason. So
Wow.
yeah, there
Hey,
you go.
they're worried about you guys, DJ.
Yeah,
But
there
yeah.
there yeah, there's a lot of Dodger 49er fans out here, so it's it's part of being in LA and getting the Rams and the Chargers here in LA now. You have a lot of fans that were became fans of other teams while we didn't have a team here in LA. He's also says, I love my Rams chicken nuggets and fries. You guys have a good night, brothers. Hey, thanks for checking in with us. So we appreciate it. And then lastly, we have James Wheelock here. He says, improved play by Stetson Bennett. However, he's not ready for the Lions den should something happen to Stafford.
Yeah.
We really agree with that. I don't think he's ready for it, but you just want to continue to see improvement. As we said, he took the whole year off last year, Gilbert. He played during the preseason, so these are he needs live action. I'm glad that McVay at least is playing him. My only worry is that you're just hoping he doesn't get hurt, because then who is your backup? Then then you're in trouble there for the
Well,
first two games.
let's hope that hammy is not a serious thing there for Matthew Stafford. He had to come out early from the Cowboys joint practice, and it sounded like he was having a productive scrimmage, as we know. I guess the Rams offense hasn't had the best work, or I guess I shouldn't say best work. It's more, it hasn't been efficient, but when you're out there practicing with another team, you're always going to get some good work there. But the ham thing and the hammy kind of makes you wonder whatever happens to the regular season. So
Yeah.
they might just start just to kind of cruise it, have a little kind of safe stretch here with Matthew Stafford when it comes to practices for another 3 to 4 weeks almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't even play him in that joint practice against the
Yeah,
Texans at this point. Just like I told you, just bubble wrap all these guys, and just get ready for the Lions on Sunday Night Football.
yeah.
Uh, it says James Garner says, "How about that former Cuero Gobbler doing his thing as he always does? Consistent has been his play since high school." Former Cuero Gobbler. I don't know who that is.
I don't
Serious.
know
Let me know
either.
who that is, James. I don't know who that is. And then
I don't,
uh, it, Al G fella says LMU's a jinx. We moved there and all the injuries. I don't know if it's the LMU thing. And talking about that, Gilbert. The Rams still haven't gotten a permit for Woodland Hills. It seems like,
Jeez.
or so they're
Yeah.
still waiting around.
They're still
The hope,
homeless apparently.
the hope it they're at a they're still at Cal Lutheran, but the hope is that they're able. Oh, there we go. He's Whittington. There you go.
Ah,
Thank
and there.
you.
Is that really is like his nickname?
I
I'm
think
not.
that's where he's from Cuero, Texas.
Oh, okay. What am
Yes,
I? Why am I thinking like Skin or other?
yes. I'm sorry, James. I didn't know he was from Cuero,
Gotcha.
Texas. So good to know. Now we know
I was
we
like,
learned something
I
today.
was like, they didn't even widow gobbler. Like that
Yeah,
doesn't make
that's
any
what I
sense.
thought too. I read it as
Yeah, exactly. Steve,
yes.
some
Yeah, here we
Spanish
go.
slur there.
Yeah, same. We thought the
What?
same. I was
Like,
like,
is it
wait.
eating people's
Like
skin or
I was
like?
halfway reading it and I was like, "Oh my god, are we gonna get in trouble here, Gilbert?" LG Fellas says Baby Wit is a bad dude. Yeah, I like Baby Wit. I like that name. I do
Yeah.
like that. I've been
Uh,
trying to figure out a name because like Jay Wit, I was like, nah, I don't really like Jay Wit or but Baby Wit is a nice name there. But
well,
getting
it's not
back
as good as AIG fella. I'll say that.
yeah, AIG
Oh,
fella.
and real quick, Cooper Cup, when he got an interview on the broadcast, he mentioned that when they drafted Jordan Whittington, that he
Yeah.
got a bunch of text messages from people saying you got a good one there with Jordan Whittington. He's gonna be a good player for you. So I think that says a lot about the work that he did at Texas.
Yeah, and like we talked about, I'm not saying that he's the next Puka, but he's the next guy that they found in those middle rounds. And as we talked about, it's just that's really good scouting and putting out the kind of being able to figure out those kind of guys where they can find that kind of talent in the middle rounds. They've been really good at that. But Gilbert, we've gone. We thought we were like, well, we might go 30 minutes, but it's been awesome to see people on the chat here. James Gardner, Steve On, Al G Fella, or as you call him, AIG Fella, James Wheelock. We saw DJ Fono, who's in the SoFi parking lot pimping over there. We got BSC. We got BC, who said, sorry, I didn't get to his. He said, go Rams. He said, whose house? He said, Rams house. We got James Wheelock saying Rams house
They
there.
responded.
So there we go. And then we had somebody just say who right before, even before we checked in here. But it's awesome to see people checking in with us. It's awesome. We like I said, we'll be doing this after every post game. So keep it locked. We have the 53-man roster to break down. Gilbert, we're gonna give you guys our predictions for the 53-man roster. We'll also preview the Lions game for Sunday Night Football. So football is right around the corner. We can't wait. These have been some night. We needed to get our own preseason stuff in here as well. But it's been awesome to kind of get the ball rolling as we get ready for football season. It'll be in a couple of weeks we'll be breaking this down. But Gilbert, we also have we'll try to get some guests on to kind of preview the season as well. So stay locked in.
Yeah, definitely. We're kind of getting to the end of the training camp and it's preseason. Like you mentioned, Victor, we're gonna try to take a stab at these 53-man rosters, which I hate doing when I'm not there every day, but I'm gonna try my best here, just based on a couple. I guess I went to like maybe I've actually seen the Rams practice like 4 times, so maybe I have a good enough sample size. I've got 2 preseason games right here. There'll be a third coming up, where I will try to take a stab at these 53-man rosters. They're always tough to do because you get a couple surprises here and there. And then after that, you really start feeling like it's about to be the regular season. We're like you mentioned, we're going to preview the Detroit Lions game, which will be a big time Week 1 matchup there for Stafford, and we're all going to be hoping he stays healthy for at least 2 games or the whole season. I guess if
Yes.
you're going to be hoping for the best.
Yeah, and then let me just go through these comments right before we log out here. We have AG Baby Witt is a bad dude. He said he is following in that mold. He said, thanks, brothers. James Garner says, no, sir. I'm from there also.
Okay.
Nice. It says Evan Host. Appreciate you guys. Big shout out to Evan. We haven't seen Evan in the comments in a while, so it's good to hear from
Yeah.
him. Michael Negrete says BC Legend is a Rams house. Big Ron Mass says go Rams, and then Stevan get a former Ram. Old guys love to talk. So there you
That is
go.
true. You know what? That's a good challenge. I will try
Yeah,
to look for an old Ram or an alumni, for a better term, to
yeah.
come and jump on. So they definitely
I
do
mean,
love to
we've gotten
talk.
a player, we've gotten a B reporter. I guess we need to get a former player on here, Gilbert. To well, Kirk Morrison wasn't a Ram, so that he doesn't
Yeah,
count. That is true.
yeah. But he did play in the league, but and he does cover the Rams during during the games, right? I think he does like the radio
Yes,
post game and pregame show. So yeah, it's actually a good challenge. See, we'll see. We'll search the internet out there for a player.
yeah. But that does it for us, Gilbert. We've gotten 45 minutes out of a second game of the preseason. Wow, Eric Dickerson would be a hard get there. He's someone that
Yeah.
is exclusive to AM 570. So I doubt he does interviews outside of because he gets paid by them. So that'll be something to kind of he said, James Garner says, check out Witt State game numbers. He broke Eric Dickerson's rushing record. So there you go. And
Wow.
we know about Eric Dickerson and what he did in Texas, allegedly, how he got a car to go to
Yeah.
SMU.
SMU. Yeah.
Yeah, so allegedly. But yeah, Gilbert, it was a good game to kind of watch, like just to kind of see some of these guys who are on the 53 man bubble, but we're ready to roll. We got a couple more weeks to get to that Lions game, but I can't wait. I mean,
Yeah.
the season is almost here.
Yeah, now that that we're done, I'm gonna go watch some UFC and check out this Adesanya DDP matchup. So good Saturday night here, and
Yep.
also good to see a lot of familiar names in the comments. Like you went through it and seeing Big Ron jumping on late, Michael Negrete.
Since we have these many people, do you want to tell them about what happened with the jersey, and maybe they should stay tuned?
Yeah, yeah, that's because I've been waiting to get more of the community back on because obviously during the off season it's a little slow getting people on, but now that we're getting the games going, nobody has claimed the Puka Nakua jersey, so there's gonna be one episode during the season, most likely like in September or whenever it just
Yes.
feels right, when it feels like there's like a lot of people commenting, there's a good crowd. I'm just gonna say F it, comment in the live chat and whoever comments right now will be automatically entered for the Puka Nakua jersey giveaway, which I've been trying to give away, but two people did not step up and claim it. I don't know why. Maybe because the off season and people go on vacation, whatever. We're gonna do it again during one of the live shows. So definitely keep being active, keep chatting with us, keep talking to us, keep making comments, keep asking us questions, whatever it is. Just kind of be involved. And whenever we have a good show where it just feels right, we'll make it open just for the people in the comments, and we'll try to give away that jersey for a third time.
There you go, guys. So keep it locked in September. We're gonna try to finally give away that Puka Nakua jersey. So stay locked in. But Gilbert, we did 48
Oh yeah,
minutes. We said we do about 30, and I'm just happy that people were chiming in and they gave us some of their thoughts. But I think for us, I think we've gotten enough work in this preseason
yeah,
that we're ready for the regular season. We're
yeah.
ready for that first game against the Lions. I can't wait to start previewing that matchup. But for me, let's get on to the regular season, Gilbert.
Yeah, we need a Raheem Morris to come in and tell us that's enough. We've seen enough. You're gonna be pulled out from the preseason. You're that good. You don't need to play
Yes.
anymore, or at least in our case, talk anymore. But
Yes.
on that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.